coin show, I left to go play in the game room, went to my pinball machine, and I left the whole checkbook there. You know, we used to have a big checkbook with everything in it, and I had it at the time, and I left the damn checkbook in the game room. When I came back to the coin show, I said, shit, then I realized, oh God, I had to go run back to the game room and get the checkbook that I left there. Ivy never knew it, so I didn't get busted for that. But I got busted for a lot of other things there. But that first A&A in Los Angeles just made me crazy, actually. I mean, it was so wonderful. My dad flew out. I introduced him to my new wonderful friends. I'll never forget. My dad came out to the bar when he had just flown in from New Jersey. And I wanted him to meet my best new buddy, Mike Follett, who was already passed out drunk in the bar at 3 in the afternoon. And I wanted to introduce, look at, these are my new friends, Dad. And I'll never forget Follett. I said, Michael, this is my dad. It was just like on, it was just like a TV. Michael lifted his head up, groaned at my father, put his head back up. That's how Mike Follett met my dad. So what happened was we came back to Dallas after the coin show, and I was actually, I got a little homesick. I was only 16, and I decided, you know what, Steve, I really appreciate it, but I want to go home. And he was cool, and I was on partial commission and salary. So at the end of the summer, I got a pretty decent little size of money for a kid. I think he ended up giving me $14,000, which at the time was a lot of money. And I went back, and I tried to integrate myself in the life of high school in Oradell, New Jersey, Riverdale High School. And it just didn't work out for me very well. Actually, the epiphany I got to quit high school was, I'll never forget it, and I tell my kids this to the end of the day. What's funny is the kid I did it to, I met up later with, I'll tell you in a minute. There was this kid, Everett Schlam, who was one of the great athletes on our football team. And we're going through the cafeteria line, and they have these giant donuts that were glazed and filled with that nasty cream. And Everett said, God, I'm so hungry, I could eat 20 of those. So I look up, I said, really? I said, I was always the same. I said, really? I said, Everett, allow me to buy them for you. I said, it would be my pleasure. and I go, here's our deal. You eat them all, they're yours for free. If you don't eat them, you have to pay me for it. He thought that was a stupendous deal. So I'll never forget, and Everett's mom was the town doctor too. So we sat there for 30 minutes and ate every one of these damn donuts just to prove it. And I'm there laughing, hysterical to myself, that I'm being entertained like this for $2. And I walk out of the school like this, everyone made fun of me. They go, I gotcha, yeah, I gotcha. So I thought, by this time I said, I don't know, these people, I don't know if I can relate to them so well anymore. So I went home and I told my mom and dad, I said, listen, I'd been leaving almost every weekend to a coin show, making $5,000-$10,000. And I was making really good money. And my dad's business was very small. For those Jewish people amongst you, in the early 70s, the fall of the kosher butcher in America was over. Because people were not eating kosher anymore, and what you could do is you can go to the supermarket and get it there, just like Walmart, for half of what my dad would charge for. So his business was terrible. And we agreed, okay, we're going to go into coin business together. And I started and I incorporated my business in 1976 in Paramus, New Jersey. And I was very fortunate because in the very beginning, a few things happened. Number one, I had this crazy person I was friends with in Boston named Chip Southwood. And he brought me in to New York City. Because the first few times you go into New York City as a kid, you walk into Stacks, you're scared to death. Even as an adult, you're scared to death. I remember I would look in and it said Julian Lipton got to sit in that little square room cage inside. And I thought he was a fucking god because he got to sit in that middle room. And I'll never forget, also around that time too, they had an auction, and Steve Ivy came in, and he wanted to use a light. And they said, you can't use a light. Oh, wow. Harvey said, you can't use a light. So they wouldn't let them use the light to look at there. Use the lights. There's nothing wrong with it. So this is pretty much the way stacks rolled there. And they were the only people I knew in New York. But they always liked me because I was a nice little Jewish boy from across the river. And they were very lovely to me. But Chip took me to meet this. He said, I know this guy in New York you do a lot of business with. It's called, he works at a company called MTV. All right, let's go. So we got stoned, went on our way into New York, takes me to Rockefeller Center. We go downstairs, and I meet Mr. Nugget for the first time. And the first time I went in there, we just hit it off like a couple. I actually, the first time I was there, he actually sold me a fairly large coin deal. And he was really cool. Did you give me credit on the spot? He said that I probably didn't pay for it. And he was, no, it's very true, and it was, and actually around also at that time too, is I would go, all of these people in this business embraced me. I mean, I went out to the Goldberg's auctions when I was 17 years old. They'd give me $100,000 in credit and let me buy whatever I wanted. But the master and the king of all the people that doted on me was Mr. Nugget as a child. He actually is offended when I say this because it's like, well, what are you talking about? What you did before? But Paul, when I was a teenager, literally doted on. And you have to understand, at the time, Manfred, Trudell, and Brooks was the only place really that was importing gold coins out of Europe. And at the time, the shit that came in over there was amazing because nobody knew, nobody cared. And the way you could tell, they had a special thing. Anything they pulled out of bullion, there was a little code on the back that said the O/A. And I said, what did that mean, by the way? I always thought it meant own account or something. What did OA mean on the back of the coins?
The 7510 that you sold came out of it.
That would be an OA for Paul. He literally, that actually is true. That's one of his OA coins, was the 1875-10 that just sold for $340,000. That's the kind of stuff that would come out of bullion back then. So, I was a very, very fortunate young man. And also the timing is that we're at this age now. When I signed my lease in Paramus, New Jersey, the guy that signed the lease with me thought it'd be great publicity to make a big fuss that he was signing a lease with a 17-year-old. So what happened is I got a tremendous amount of publicity at the time. I was in all these magazines and newspapers, and I was even on To Tell the Truth, which actually is really a very funny thing because at the time I had a giant Jew throw when I was on and we actually stumped the panel, and I actually got the tape years later. My wife, I never even thought of getting it, but my wife got it, and actually if I should have brought anything to get you're going to love that. It's really very, very good. And have you seen it? So, by coincidence as well, John Danruther here is the only coin dealer in the world that actually slept over my house when I still lived in Oradell, New Jersey, before I ever moved out, when I was 16 years old. So the point I'm making is the camaraderie and the roots of the lunatics in this business are beyond belief. I remember the first coin I sold to David Hall, and he loves to talk about it. I sold him an 1813 large cent, and he bought it. It was like $55, and he didn't realize it till afterwards, and I didn't either at the time. But on the back, instead of saying 1 cent, there was a punch in the cent, and it said 1 cunt. Because he never looked, I never looked, but he still mentions it to this day. that was the very first coin he bought from me. It was this
rock solid.
Who cares about that? So, along comes 1979, and I'm 19, 20 years old, and all the markets really begun wonderful. So the Hunt brothers are involved in silver. Silver's $50 an ounce. Gold is growing crazy. I've got Paul Nugget in New York selling me fresh, great shit every weekend. And when I go to a coin show, more Paul, I know he doesn't like to hear this. If I came home and I overspent, and if I whatever magically, if I need to sell $100,000 worth of coins, Paul would spend $100,000. And always, not like it was bad deals or anything, but always magically do whatever I needed to do to perpetuate my business. And